in this difficult hour of our life, both domestically and internationally. Subject of today's conference, economic policies for emerging economies, is very topical. The world economy is passing through turbulent times. Recovery from the global economic crisis has been staggered because of a complex mix of real and financial challenges facing many industrialized economies. Moreover, the recovery has been two-paced, with emerging market economies like China and India leading the way forward, followed by Latin America and Africa. Advanced economies have grown more slowly than before. Over the past months, deep and widespread economic problems have surfaced in Europe, which is a further setback to the global economic recovery. Indeed, there is indication that even in the tepid economic recovery that we have seen so far in the advanced economies is stalling. Unemployment in these economies never quite recovered from their crisis highs. The relatively robust recovery in emerging markets economies is also beginning to falter. The financial markets, which had never fully recovered from the earlier crisis, are under renewed stress. The current build-up of concerns has been incremental in nature, with a series of local intermittent shocks getting transferred to the global economy. All this has happened despite the aggressive use of both fiscal and monetary policy tools and our collective resolve to keep markets open. This poses some serious problems for the policymakers. Going forward, it limits our options in dealing with the emerging situation. The heart of the problem lies in sovereign debt. John Maynard Keynes had famously observed that when you borrow £1,000, you are under the thumb of your banks. But when you borrow £1 million, your banker is under your thumb. During economic slowdown, in the wake of the global financial crisis, virtually all governments increased their spending as part of fiscal stimulus packages. We were no exception. We had to stimulate almost 3% of our GDP as stimulus package in our economy. In particular, several European governments built up large public debt. As a consequence, those who lent money to these sovereigns are in trouble. I should add that reality is a little more complex than what Keynes had said. The large debt is causing a problem for both the lenders and the borrowers. It is possible to argue that current developments in the global economy reflect a major shift in the international economic order, where emerging economies will come to play a major role in the post-crisis world. While new opportunities await us in the near future, we must recognize that sound economic policy making is a must for realizing those advantages. Our intellectual engagements in the field of economic policy analysis also need to enhance. It is therefore imperative to deliberate on innovative ideas to address challenges faced by emerging economies involving all stakeholders. In this context, the present conference assumes even greater significance. Though emerging economies recovered quickly from the 2008-9 global crisis, Factors including capacity constraints, rising commodity prices, uncertainties in capital flows, and slowdown in external demand have impacted their growth to varying degrees. Some of them have also been experiencing inflationary pressures. Excessive liquidity from aggressive policy actions by central banks from around the world trying to counter recessionary tendencies spilled over into emerging economies, resulting in excessive volatility in capital flows and inflationary pressures. It is reassuring to note that in such a globalized environment, the pause in India's growth story was brief. The Indian economy recovered, with growth averaging over 8% in the 2 succeeding years of the outbreak of crisis in 2008. We are presently faced with a rapidly evolving economic scenario. While the Indian economy faced excessive capital inflows in the aftermath of the global crisis, leading to appreciation of the domestic currency, with the unfolding of the Eurozone crisis, the matter of concern at present is a reversal in such flows, leading to increased currency volatility. We have witnessed sharp depreciation of the rupee vis-à-vis US dollar in the last few months. Slowdown in external demand has led to deceleration in the growth of exports in the recent months, with the current account deficit widening to around 3% of GDP. Sustained high level of inflation that has been a major policy concern for us over the past 2 years is now beginning to moderate. Food inflation has seen a decline to 6.6% for the week ending November 26, 2011. Growth, however, has slowed in 2011-12. The second quarter of the current fiscal has registered a GDP growth of 6.9%, following a growth of 7.7% in the first quarter. Our monthly industrial growth has slowed down sharply for the month of October 2011. This is partly a reflection of the global trends. But our own fight against inflation has also taken a toll on the investments by our corporations. We must turn our attention now to reviving growth as quickly as possible. We also have our fiscal challenges, but our problems, whether they are measured in terms of aggregate public debt or the size of the fiscal deficit, are nowhere nearly as large as the ones faced by many European countries. I say this not to encourage complacency in India, but to place the issue in perspective. I am expecting that the present downturn will be temporary and our economy will soon revert back to higher growth trajectory. Indian economy is in some ways better placed than many other nations to withstand a fresh round of global economic turmoil. India's resilience results from the fact that the bulk of India's GDP is domestic demand driven. A calibrated approach to capital account convertibility has to a significant extent prevented rapid surges and reversals of debt-creating capital flows. India's external commercial borrowing policy that places end-use all-in cost and maturity restrictions has been successful in maintaining external debt at sustainable levels. India's banking sector is robust and export basket is increasingly diversified, with developing countries being our largest export market. We can also take satisfaction of optimal regulatory mechanisms in place that check unsustainable financial practices, thus ensuring the robustness in the financial sector. I understand that a plenary panel in this conference will dwell on issues concerning social justice and inclusive development. I am happy that Professor Amartya Sen, who is a world authority in these matters, is with us today. In a globalized world, macroeconomic disturbances will come up from time to time to challenge policymakers in economies like ours. However, problems of poverty and inequality pose continuing challenges for us. Our growth story is now an accepted fact, but many people in this country are yet to receive the full benefits of our rapid economic expansion. Our commitment to inclusive growth is an endeavor to include those at the margins into the mainstream of India's growth story through micro and macro level initiatives. We are seeking to strengthen institutions and delivery mechanisms that take the benefits of high growth to the poor and marginalized. Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme is one such example. Our emphasis on inclusive development in the 12th five-year plan that focuses on agriculture and crucial social sectors, including education and health, is in keeping with this objective. While I am not personally familiar with the work of Professor Richard Freeman, I know that he has written extensively on labor rights and the welfare of workers. I am sure he will have useful advice to give us. Let me conclude by saying that we need to further our understanding of issues where greater and coordinated policy actions are needed to sustain growth and create inclusive outcomes for the people. I am confident that this conference would continue to that end. Let me once again compliment the organizers of the conference for this great effort. I look forward to benefiting from the outcome of your deliberations. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the patience.
Thank you, sir, for a perspicuous address detailing the present global scenario and how the Indian economy is placed vis-à-vis other economies, advanced as well as emerging. We too hope that this forum ensures widest possible exchange of ideas and knowledge, both on stage and off stage, as this conclave brings together illustrious personalities and some of the finest brains from across the globe.
Now we request Professor Govinda Rao, Director of National Institute of Public Finance and Policies, to propose the vote of thanks.
Honorable Finance Minister Sri Pranab Mukherjee, distinguished dignitaries on the dais, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished invitees, scholars from various universities and research institutions, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I am deeply honored and privileged to be doing this pleasant duty of proposing the vote of thanks to the luminaries in this inaugural session. To have these distinguished luminaries on the dais together is by no means a small achievement. The issue confronting the various emerging economies are not identical, though there are lots of common issues there. There are some of which are due to global events. There are others which are the result of domestic policies. In some cases, solutions are known, but it's politically difficult to implement. Nevertheless, this conclave helps us to identify various policies and find ways and to strategize them for implementation. I am most grateful to the Honorable Finance Minister for his personal interest in holding this conference and gracing the occasion. People who are acquainted with the Indian economy and polity surely know that there is no political or economic issue that can be resolved without the Finance Minister's role. And there are so many issues confronting the government at present that one wonders whether he gets any time for himself at all. Despite very high opportunity cost, it goes to his credit to be here to inaugurate the International Conference in Economic Policies for Emerging Economies. We are very deeply indebted to him. We are also indebted to the Minister of State for Revenue, Sri Pranab, for gracing the occasion. We will have a veritable fair the whole day with Professor Sen and Professor Freeman speaking in the next session chaired by Dr. Ahluwalia. In fact, the various events slated for the whole day will be a treat for all of us, with such eminent dignitaries, giving their views. It was Dr. Kaushik Basu who, with this enlightened vision and leadership, involved the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy to collaborate with the Department of Economic Affairs for the second successive year in organizing the conference. We are extremely proud of this collaboration effort and thankful to him for this collaboration enterprise. In a sense, this is an ongoing collaboration which we have with the Department of Economic Affairs, which Mr. Gopalan has been extremely supportive. We have a program on capital flows with the Ministry of Finance, with the Department of Economic Affairs. It's an ongoing program, and we consider that